you know, there was a vindictive quality to a lot of what the Congress people heard from their constituents. Why should we bail them out? Look at what they've done to us. And it was Main Street versus Wall Street. And this is, you know, this is another failure of Friedmanism, because the idea of the ownership society was that class consciousness was supposed to disappear, right? Because union members we're not going to think of themselves as workers, because everybody owned a piece of the stock market, and everybody was going to have a mortgage, so they would think like owners. They would think like bosses. They would think like landlords, not like tenants, not like workers. Class is suddenly back in America with a vengeance, and it is the result of this class war that was waged from this school. Now, interestingly, there is another Chicago boy, and Barack Obama is responding to the market crisis by turning his campaign really into a referendum, though he wouldn't call it a referendum on Friedmanism. He seems to be turning it into a referendum on Friedmanism. He is saying that essentially what we are seeing on Wall Street is the culmination of an ideology of deregulation and trickle-down economics, give a lot to the top and wait for it to trickle down to the people at the bottom, and that is precisely what has failed. And what's interesting is that the more he says that, the higher his ratings go in the polls. So I think we can see a couple of scenarios for the future. One, McCain wins, and it's economic shock therapy. You know, the thesis of the shock doctrine is that we've been sold a fairy tale about how these radical policies have swept the globe. That they haven't swept the globe on the backs of freedom and democracy, but they have needed shocks, they have needed crises, they have needed states of emergencies. It doesn't necessarily have to be an outright military coup, which are the conditions in which this ideology had its first laboratories. It can just be a bad enough economic crisis, a bad enough hyperinflation crisis in an electoral democracy that allows politicians to say, sorry about everything we said during the campaign, sorry about the usual ways in which we make decisions, debate, discussion. We're going to have to haul up, form an emergency economic team, and impose shock therapy, usually with the help of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Milton Friedman understood the utility of crisis. And this is a quote, you know, I use it a lot, but I'll use it now again because I think it's important, which he has at the beginning of the 1982 edition of Capitalism and Freedom. Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to existing policies, to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes politically inevitable. Now, because I've been studying the utility of crisis for this free market project, which I consider to be very anti-democratic, it's really attuned me to looking for the ideas that are lying around. And I've been paying really close attention to people like Grover Norquist, Newt Gingrich, the Republican Study Committee these past few weeks. And I have a ideas lying around file, which are the ideas that they're floating right now in the midst of this economic crisis. And a lot of them are familiar. But the point is that they're being repackaged now as the way out of this economic crisis. So it's suspending the capital gains tax, getting rid of the post-Enron regulations, getting rid of mark-to-market accounting. In other words, more deregulation and less money in the public coffers. And it is interesting that the way in which this bill, the way the senators were trying to get the bailout bill through the Senate after it had failed to go through Congress was by adding tax cuts, a package of $118 billion worth of tax cuts. Some of them are good, some of them are not. But it's a deepening of this crisis. So we know that the crisis is coming, and the question is, how are we going to respond? think there needs to be better ideas lying around. I think the Milton Friedman Institute is about keeping the same old ideas that have been recycled so many times that actually make these public crises worse, making sure that they are the ones that are ready and available whenever the next crisis hits. I think that is what, at its core, that's what so many of the right-wing think tanks are for, and that's what the Institute is for. And I think that is a waste of the fine minds at this university. I think it is a waste of your minds, your creativity, because all of these crises, climate change, the casino that is contemporary capitalism, all of these crises do demand answers, do demand action. They are messages telling us that the system is broken. And instead of actual solutions, we're throwing ideology, very profitable ideology, at these problems. So we need better ideas lying around. We need better ideas responding to what a Barack Obama presidency would absolutely face. As soon as he comes to office, yes, you can turns into no, you can't. We're broke, no green jobs, no alternative energy, no health care for everyone. You know, his plan to give health care to every child in America costs $80 billion. Bailing out AIG cost $85 billion. So they're spending that money. They're spending those promises. So the people who are going to say, no, you can't, who are going to use this crisis to shut down hope, to shut down possibility, are ready. And I think it would be so wonderful to have the brilliant young economists of the University of Chicago. I don't know if any of them bothered to come out tonight, but to have your minds at work meeting this crisis. We need you. We need open minds. We need flexible minds, as creative as possible. The Milton Friedman Institute, in its name and essence, is about trying to recapture a moment of ideological certainty that has long passed. It has long passed because reality has intervened. It was fun when it was all abstract. It was fun when it was all in the realm of promise and possibility, but we are well past that. Please, don't retreat into your sacred texts. Join us in the real world.
Naomi Klein, author of The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. She was speaking at the University of Chicago against the naming of the Economics Institute there, the Milton Friedman Institute, invited by a group of faculty. If you'd like to get a copy of today's broadcast, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. Special thanks to CAN TV in Chicago. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Sharif Abdel-Quddus, Aaron Mata, Angelique Comet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud, Robbie Karen. Happy birthday to Rockhem Penny and Becca Staley. Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, and Peter Curries are our engineers. Also special thanks to Peter Curries and Sharif Abdel-Quddus for directing today. Also, Samantha Chambly, Jay Salnour, Laura Chipley, Travis Collins, Kieran Crook-Meadows. On October 17th, I'll be in Madison, Wisconsin at the Barrymore Theater at the Wisconsin Festival of Books, and on the 18th in Memphis, Tennessee at the Gandhi King Conference. You can go to our website at democracynow.org for further details and for the transcript and the video and audio podcast of today's broadcast. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.